Welcome back to my channel. I'm Dr. Paul Morrison, CEO and founder of PKMCyberConsultants.com. I'm your cybersecurity expert. Been in the business for over 18 years. Hold a lot of cybersecurity certifications. And the intent of my site is really just to inform and educate mostly. However, if anyone's looking for additional services, they could always reach out to my firm for other information. So today we're going to cover the top 8 insider cybersecurity threats and how to stop them. I always say it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And when they come in, it's more so how do you ensure resiliency. I like to use my house analogy a lot, where if someone breaks into your home, you have 5 rooms and they all have very personal information that you want to protect. That could be furniture, jewelry, whatever the case may be. The goal is really to identify them once they break in and then be able to kind of neutralize them before they're able to go anywhere further within your home to get that done. So let's talk about the overview. I'm going to cover the top 8 insider threats often missed by your security tools. I'm going to go over 5 ways to prevent some of these things from happening as it relates to cybersecurity and gaps. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about advanced threat detection. My webinars, do my PowerPoints, and my presentation will cover various topics. Again, if you ever need me to go into a more deeper dive, I could reach out to my firm and someone will contact you from that perspective. So the top 8 insider threats as it relates to security tools are sometimes often missed. Some of them are really related to unauthorized access to your computers, vulnerabilities that you need to be mindful of from that perspective. Additionally, storage of information, areas where you might have external connection coming in. Sometimes your security tools are often missed and lacking around that from that perspective. So again, just a couple things to be mindful of as you look at it. So if you think about information flow, once the sensitive data from your business computers reach the wrong hands, then they could be really major significant consequences. Now imagine how much damage that could happen if a critical project you were working on, strategy got in the wrong hands of your competitors. So really, when we talk about unauthorized access, you really want to make sure you have a way to really look at that and contain that. But again, some of the things that we've seen in the industry is poor password hygiene from that perspective, along with some other security negative things that should be taking place that's not really always happening on a regular basis. The next one around on unauthorized use is really logging into your infrastructure. But when I say logging in, it's unauthorized access to company servers. That's one of the areas where you want to beef up your security and your endpoint security controls. 30% of business experience unauthorized access to their cloud resources. And of course, this is based on, it's really a matter of really understanding that cloud is a shared platform and there is some level of expectancy on your end that you really want to make sure you take advantage of in terms of locking your controls down. The other one is around domain access. So an employee is accessing a company's internal domain. They should not have that. They should only have access to what I like to call need to know, because elevated access by an employee allows a threat actor to really hijack their IDs and be able to gain access to your environment. So again, when you look at access and role-based security, which is something I'll talk about on another webinar, you really want to make sure that when you have unauthorized access, you're notified as to what's going on in that particular domain. So again, you could be aware before major things shouldn't happen. Now, if you think of it, from a customer's perspective, you might have, received suspicious login notifications from Google as well as some other secure websites. Now, one of the things is you're going to receive it at least once or twice in general from that perspective. So you cannot be in two places at one time. Again, you want to know if you have employees logging in and you know that they're assigned in the US, but you're also seeing their login ID from somewhere else. This could be a potential compromise of credentials, and you want to make sure you're able to address it pretty quickly. Again, it is estimated that literally Facebook blocks close to, I want to say, 6 million suspicious login attempts every year. And the other thing you want to look for when you're thinking about access for your staff or your employees is unusual login hours. Again, if you know your workers are in, let's say, New York, but you're noticing logging attempts outside the working hours, that might be an indication that something's going on. Again, generally my staff, it depends on where they are around the world. I know my East Coast branch will be working generally from, let's say, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Now, if I have many logging attempts coming in from that location and it's coming in at 1 a.m., more than likely, I'm not saying all the time, that there's something that could be going on there, and I want to get an alert just to make sure we can look at it from that perspective. The other area, when you think about it, you can't make it easy for threat actors to access your network. You really have to make sure you're setting up your internal and or your wireless network in a way that's going to really ensure you have the right controls around those vulnerabilities that are coming in from your wireless network from that perspective. So again, some of the things you want to do is you want to permit guests to access the company through internal wireless network, but you kind of want to segment that off. So while they come into your environment, they cannot traverse outside internally to other areas of an environment. Again, you want to make sure you remove any security controls that are basically access controls that are considered weak. Also making sure you have strong passwords in place. So this, again, some of the hygiene stuff you want to look for. Now, some employees might do it without harmful intent. So what I mean by that is I always look at it that everyone comes to work to make sure that they want to protect the security as it relates to privacy, information, etc. But again, you also want to make sure that you're putting in certain controls that's going to really help them from that perspective, help them kind of manage through that. So again, connecting to unauthorized wireless networks can unintentionally expose your IT team to threat based on failed encryption and other things that could happen. Now, this also could, expose the organization network to threats, malware, and ransomware. So really what I'm saying here is, as you look at your entry point from your wireless perspective, you really want to put in place the appropriate controls on your endpoint to really address those things that may seem a little bit out of the ordinary. And these are, again, some housekeeping things. Yeah. The other thing is sensitive data. Remember, if a business is not capable of safely storing its customer data, then you will get dissatisfied customers who will switch to a competitor. Again, I've been involved with some breaches where, while the data loss wasn't huge, but the impact to the brand was even more, because optics and perspective of security and how you take security goes a long way when you're dealing with consumers, especially if the only difference is the fact that they secure data a lot better than you do. That could be a deciding factor from that perspective. So again, improper storage of sensitive data, as I state here, could have brand impact, revenue impact, and then of course penalties of up to 2% to 4%, moreover of a company turnover. So again, it is something to really consider and take seriously. So how do you prevent that? How do you prevent those internal gaps? We really want to make sure you're plugging internal cybersecurity gaps is vital, according to the Threat Center of Carnegie Mellon University. That's more of their threat intel organization as it relates to malicious actions. They've seen an actually increase over 23% of all electronic crimes from that perspective, right? So again, the 5 ways that I have listed here is really, and I'll start first with the people aspect. Making sure your people really understand the policy procedures, how to connect is very important from that perspective. You want to make sure you use vaults for your credentials and passwords. So their way to vault your credentials via internally or the cloud. That's something, again, if you want more information on, you can reach out to my firm and we can talk more about that. You do want to always adopt least privilege. So this is really where giving individuals the access, I like to call it from an identity access perspective, birthright. What are they inherently required to do their job? And they just get that particular access, no more, no less. And then of course you want to monitor your third-party partners and contractors. Again, they have access to your network. You really want to make sure that not only do they have really great housekeeping rules around their own policies and procedures, are they doing risk assessments? Are they looking at risk within their own environment? Because a breach in their end could be a breach in your end. But you also want to make sure that they're following up and agreeing to your security protocols and procedures, especially from a regulated perspective. And then of course you want to standardize your offboarding policy. So again, making sure you have one playbook that everyone would adhere to make sure that there's no discrepancy along the way as it relates to your policies and procedures. A house divided is a house that's going to fall, I like to say. Now, if you think of the role of advanced threat detection systems, this is an area where I think a lot of companies try to do a lot in this area. Some don't because of many different reasons. But when you think of threat detection systems, you're really thinking of a comprehensive internal threat solution that's really going to expose unauthorized logins and attempts into your particular organization. It's going to help you identify any new user profile that suddenly popped up that you weren't aware of. Sometimes threat actors could create a profile, so you want to make sure you're ahead of that. It's going to really look at those applications just installed and ensure they're locked down to your company standards. Again, you want to make sure that a threat actor is not connecting to your environment. You don't know where, but you don't know about it, and they're able to just kind of sit there and then wait for things to happen. You want to make sure it sends an alert when devices are connected to unauthorized your wireless network. So again, if I go in and I try to plug into your environment, you should be getting alert that I'm doing that. So again, alert gatekeepers when a new user is granted administrator rights. This is really critical, and I say this often. I've been involved with hacks where individuals gain access to administrative rights, and their personal ID to log into their computer is also an administrative right access ID that allows them to bring down databases. You should have a system, and I never like to talk tools because I'm not a tool person, but I do believe there's many out there, CyberArk, some others, and they didn't pay me for this, just tools that I've used in the past that allows just-in-time check-in for administrative rights, where you check it in, or basically you check it out to use what you need to use, and you kind of check it back in as need be. So it's not always constantly being used over time. All right. The other part is vulnerability. So it's essential to fix a vulnerability at the earliest opportunity. If not, you're at full risk for a full-blown attack. So again, these solutions allow you to detect vulnerabilities within your environment, such as unusual time of day login activity. It'll look at and find PII information that is stored throughout your environment and not locked away in a safe, secure storage area. Again, it helps really detect breaches. Again, you want to make sure you're ahead of it versus after it. And it just exposes hackers' footprints, or footholds, I like to say. So again, if a hacker might have entered your environment, sometimes they'll do recon, I like to say, to see if they can get in, plan a vulnerability, and then let it sit there, and then at some period of time, kind of kick off, and then now you have a ransomware situation that you're dealing with overall. So again, as I said, it's essential to fix a vulnerability at the earliest opportunity. Again, if not, you'll have a full-blown risk. That's kind of could be available for an exploit. We do have an advanced internal threat detection solution that combines machine language and intelligent tagging, really AI, that would help with some of these suspicious activity. Again, my main purpose for my site is really more so to educate and inform. But again, if you're ever looking for additional solutions, please feel free to reach out, and one of my staff members will just have a consultation discussion with you from that perspective. All right, that's it. I know I have questions, but given this is pre-recorded and not live, sometimes I do these things live. That's why I kind of use these slides for multi-purpose reasons. But as always, if you like what you're hearing, you want to hear more, you want to hear something different, please subscribe to my channel. Again, as you can tell, I'm pretty loose about how I deliver these things. I don't try to make it overly polished. It's really a fireside chat, I like to call it, with me just kind of walking through some of these scenarios that I've personally dealt with and deal with on a day-to-day basis from that perspective. All right, thank you, and until next time.